Hey, what's up? Aerodozz here. This is Oloro Ageless Ascetic. He's a commander that was released in the C13 commander product. And we're playing against Horde of Notions, who is a 5 color commander with Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. So as soon as he gets down, he can attack, and he's a 5/5 Trampler. And he has this ability to cast any elemental from their graveyard just by paying 5 mana for each color. Here we see a pretty capable hand. 2 lands plus Dark Confidant is always good. So we can start drawing cards. I'm hoping to draw another land so we can start having our more expensive spells online, such as Dungeon Sphere and or Crucible of Worlds. Actually, if we get a Crucible of Worlds online, then we'd be able to have a land drop effectively every turn because of Marsh Flats. And here we see our opponent ramping pretty hard. If he gets blue mana somehow, then he'd be able to cast his commander immediately. Go ahead and drop our card draw, Dark Confidant. Here is the Glacial Chasm, and I elect not to drop it because effectively it's a land that prevents damage. So ideally I want to drop it as he drops his commander. But right now I don't want to sacrifice any of my lands, and I also don't want to drop this because it doesn't produce any mana. So I decide to scry 3 with Sensei's Divining Top and then just get the island down for next turn. Here he tutors for something, and it ends up being Liliana. At least I think it is. And he tutors for something else with Liliana. Here I cast Basalt Monolith, as well as Crucible of Worlds. And then I can just replay my Marsh Flats indefinitely. Decided to search for more blue mana so we can cast our Cryptic Command sometime. Here he casts Nicol Bolas Planeswalker, and he steals my Dark Confidant. And that is a big problem because he can start destroying our Crucible Worlds and our lands if he wanted to next turn. So I go ahead and use Detention Sphere on him. Keep enough mana so I can trick bind anything that he might cast. Here I just go ahead and discard my excess mana. Here I place the counterspell on top. And now we have 2 counters in case he has anything tricky. And he does play Jace, so I just use Cryptic Command, counter Jace, and return Dark Confidant back to my hand. And here he tries to cast his commander. So luckily I can just remand it because we have enough mana for that. Right now we top deck Duress, so I want to go ahead and do that. If nothing else, just to get a look at his hand. And in fact, he only does have creatures, so I can't really discard anything. So I just play Dark Confidant back again. He tries to cast Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre, which I assumed is what he tutored for. And this guy has, well, there's 2 problems with him. One, whenever you cast him, you can destroy a permanent. So he decides to target my Detention Sphere, so this way he'd get back Nicol Bolas as well as an indestructible Eldrazi on the battlefield. Seeing as that is not the most ideal position for me, I decide to counter that. I decide to first trick bind his trigger so that, you know, he does not destroy that permanent. And I also decide to Pact of Negation the actual Eldrazi. And he decides to punish me with a discard, but I decide to keep a counterspell in my hand. for next turn. Here I pay the upkeep for a Pact of Negation, leaving enough mana for a counterspell. And here we see removal on top, which is always good. So in case he decides to cast his commander again, I can just Path to Exile it, or sorry, Swords to Plowshares it. And in fact, he decides to cast Woodfall Primus. And once again, I'm assuming he's going to target the Detention Sphere so he could get Nicol Bolas back. So I just counter that. And here again, he has mana enough to cast his General. Luckily, we have removal for that. But in case he decides to cast his General again, I can just I'd rather use the instant removal for the next time he casts his General, so I just use Supreme Verdict right here. Even though it would have been a good play to keep Dark Confidant on the field for the extra card draw. And once again he casts his General, so I just Swords to Plowshares it. Or sorry, I keep the Swords to Plowshares for next turn, and I just utter end him. Gets Academic Rector out, and I don't want that thing to die because then he'd just get any enchantment on his battlefield, from his library onto the battlefield. And I don't want something like Omniscience out. That would not be a good thing. So here I just decide to Winter Orb so that he can't play whatever he tutored for. Since he does not cast anything, I just sort of let the game go on, and then just to be safe I exile his Academy Rector. And at this point I'm feeling pretty confident because we have a counter in our hand. So in case he tries to go for any sort of big spell like this, I can just counter him and get value off of that. Here we see Soul Ring and Toxic Deluge. So any sort of creature shouldn't be too much of a problem. And finally we do top deck Teferi, Temporal Archmage. And he can just untap all of our mana for us. Or at least 4 pieces of our mana. And we also get Well of Lost Dreams. And this card basically says that whenever you gain life you can pay X mana and then you draw that many cards. And here I just decided to play Glacial Chasm, just in case he casts a General again. Prevent the damage. But instead he goes for Bribery and casts Snapcaster Mage, who's the only other creature in my deck. But unfortunately for him, he can't cast anything from his graveyard because he doesn't have the right mana. Here I decide that he's tapped out enough to just sacrifice Glacial Chasm because I didn't want to pay the 2 life upkeep. Use Toxic Deluge since we can use Liam Dool's Vault next turn. He doesn't cast anything here, so I decide to go ahead and look for our other win condition, Karn. And here we see Karn on top, so I just use the vault to put the cards on top appropriately. Use Karn's minus ability on his Soul Ring. And at this point we have the game pretty much in control, so here I'm just sort of biding time. Get mana drain just in case he has something. And at this point we want to get Elspeth out or get Mind Twist so he doesn't have any cards in hand. At this point just biding time. until we draw a tutor. Here I cast Tangle Wire, just because. Tap out all of his lands that he untapped from Winter Orb. And here I finally get Demonic Tutor, so I tutor for Mind Twist. Now that his hand is discarded, the game is pretty much in control. And here I just wait until I draw Elspeth to actually kill him. And with Elspeth out, I can just keep casting soldiers and then ultimately use Elspeth's ultimate. Usually at this point people would concede, but I guess it's admirable that he did not concede, because there's always a chance, no matter how small, of you coming back from a game and winning. But unfortunately for him, it didn't happen this game, so good game.